This is Thibaut. I just want to assure you that on the broadcast here, I wasn't trying to disparage your son. I was merely saying about the epicness of his opponent, and he did fight valiantly. Now, he did ultimately lose. However, I gotta say, I do. T, do I not love you?
No, that's true.
That's what I'm saying. Mrs. Thibaut, I wish you a wonderful evening or morning or whatever's going on, and I will be more kind to your son on camera.
Cards, your ultimate destinations for all things tabletop in Riverton, Utah. Uniting enthusiasts under one roof, we proudly showcase Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, Magic, Weiss, and One Piece, a gateway into an exhilarating universe of gaming. Immerse yourselves in our diverse products, including a very squishy array of Japanese plushies and the excitement of Gashapon machines. Our expansive play area invites you to duel in epic battles and forge unbreakable bonds with your fellow players. We open our doors every day at noon, embracing a realm where cards come alive and unforgettable moments are forged. Come join us at Kayfabe Cards.
The Instant Speed Podcast welcomes Tommy Fresh. That's it. See, that's what happens when you have no notes.
Right. Well, I'm here, and guess what? I'm happy to be here, Flake. How are you, my friend? What's going on?
I'm well. I just got back from Atlanta. When I say I just got back from Atlanta, I mean like literally a couple hours ago. I got through. And I'm on a plane to Las Vegas at 9 a.m. On Wednesday. So I didn't have time to write notes or do anything. And you were gracious enough. Honestly, I think I messaged you, like 4 hours ago?
Yeah.
I messaged you in Atlanta saying, do you want to do an episode with me? Because, again, it's fascinating to me how sometimes when the planning thing works, there are certain people that you get on the show and you want to have everything set up because you might not know them as well, or you might not have the same relationship like you and I have, where you need some notes and you want some guidelines. But I figured, okay, if I have no time to make notes and I have no time to do anything, who are the people I can lean on to just have a free-flowing conversation? And you're one of the people that came to mind. Oh, I should say this.
Say it.
I did ask Mara Faris, and she did tell me to go fly a kite. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what, Mara? Yeah, I got to respect the gumption there with that kind of, be able to turn down Flake. I can't, unfortunately, do that. But I do want to say I messaged you in Atlanta is probably going to be the next big ballad hit from Taylor Swift. I'd like that as a song title. When so I really, it had some poetic, stuff going on with it.
I want like 1% of Taylor Swift money. Like when they say there's FU money and Beyonce has FU money, Taylor Swift has Taylor Swift money.
Yes.
All it took was a dozen broken relationships, but gosh dang it. I mean, I wish I could harness that kind of, dating futility into a vast fortune of wealth and fame.
Yeah, well, I don't want to upset the Swifties out there, but at some point you got to be the problem, right? If you keep having these breakups, I don't want to speculate, but just some deduction there.
I say this. I used to say this when I used to bartend. I bartended for 5 years, and when I used to bartend, there was these. We used to call them the carnies. There's this group of regulars that were really annoying, and they were the most unhappy people ever, which alludes to what our topic will be today, which is happiness in card games. But they used to come in, and they used to always be a pain in the ass. And even me, who likes to speak to people and can put on a brave face, eventually got worn thin. And one dude eventually came in, and I was having a bad day. I was having a few bad days. And he comes in and he said, every time I come in here, you're not smiling. And I said, I wonder why. There's some science to be found here.
Man, I mean, I don't want to say correlation is causation, but you got to look at these numbers,
Yeah,
buddy.
myth confirmed, for sure. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be talking about today, my friends. Is gonna be happiness in card games, and I figured I wanted to bring on not just somebody who had a nice, who can wing it, as it were, who can absolutely go full Dr. Van Nostrum on us, but I wanted somebody who makes me happy, and that would be Thomas von Freshness himself, the host of the Fresh and Bud podcast, who recently eclipsed 100 episodes. Did we talk about this already?
No, not yet, not yet.
I
Yeah, it
don't
only
think we
happened a couple
did.
weeks ago.
It was recently, yes, and I had meant to bring you on. It just timing kind of falls behind, but let's talk about happiness and happiness in card games, and we can talk about it from the perspective of playing the games, but also just the culture and everything around it. And this idea kind of came to me when yesterday we were after the PTI event. It was like it wrapped up. It was late. It was like 9:30, 10 p.m. We were looking for a place to grab dinner in Atlanta. There was about 12 or 14 of us, and we just couldn't find a spot. So we all just ate at the hotel, and it was just wonderful. I was sitting. We had to get broken up into multiple groups. I was sitting at a table. It was myself, Brody Spurlock, T. Tebow, Maddie. I don't know her last name, and I feel terrible. Maddie, the judge, the head judge, and Mara Faris. And at another table, there was like Michael Fang and Ethan Van Sant, and there's a bunch of wonderful people. And we were just talking about it, and I stopped for a second because I wanted to literally acknowledge the fact that this was good. And I know that it sounds odd to say, but sometimes these moments just pass you by. They're fleeting, and you don't get to sit there and actually acknowledge the fact that something good and something happy is happening. So that's why I brought you in. I said, this is a great thing to talk about because these card games and this culture has given us more than just a 60 card deck and a win or a loss. And for you now eclipsing 100 episodes, you just having this community, the Buds, it's a wonderful network of people. How has this game and this community and this whole experience, from a very broad perspective, how has this contributed to your happiness?
It's a mixed bag, right? I think that the easiest answer there, right? Hit over 100 episodes, whatever, is the fact that I was able to accomplish something because of this game that I didn't really see happening maybe at the beginning. I had hoped for it, right? But you'd never know. But it goes beyond that because I realized why it took all the other people, right? That's what the whole point is. I'm Tommy Fresh. You're all my buds, right? All the buds. I wouldn't have made it, whether that is the folks listening and watching, or if it's the folks that hop on the mics with me, right? I've been very blessed to have talked to like a huge myriad of people, right? Of all different backgrounds, all different kinds of ideas and basically what the game means to them. So I've been able to really experience where the game is affecting people from like all angles, and I think that's really made me pretty happy, right? Because there was a point, right, where you kind of get bogged down. You're like, I gotta grow my channel, I gotta do this, all these things, but really in the end, I had to realize that like actually I'm just having fun talking to these people and having people enjoy the conversations, right? I don't care if it is the biggest episode in the world. I care if someone was like, "Oh, that's really cool that they said that on your podcast." And I had never thought about that way. And now I'm going to approach the game in that way. And I think that's very rewarding, right? Obviously, I would love to have a bajillion, gazillion subscribers or whatever, but we got to temper our expectations. That's next year, 2024.
Oh, is that the goal?
Yeah.
Well, we just cast this just quickly. You're casting with DM Armada. DM Armada likes to say anytime there's a big attack, he says it's coming in for a bajillion damage, and I always reply with, "Okay, we will round this down to reality and to give you the actual digits." Yeah.
Yeah. So 1,000 100,000 subscribers, right? That's rounded down to
That's reasonable.
reality.
That's
That's
reasonable.
reasonable. Just wait. But yeah, I think that's really like the key to at least my happiness in the game, right? And then like you mentioned these hangs right after these big events, and there's some of my favorite things in the world too, and I think something that people that are listening could take from that is, and I suffer from this too. It's a pain in the ass to get things together, to make plans, to go out and do them, and like actually go like get out of the couch and just go do it, right? Especially after a long day of playing card games or casting them or working on the crew or whatever. But it's always worth it, right? Like it's not a taxing thing if you're with people that are great and that you love and really can make you happy, because if you're happy, that radiates, right? And they're going to be happy and everybody leaves happy and they're like, I'm glad we did that, right? It's been very few times where I was like, I shouldn't have done that, right? Usually those times involve way too much alcohol and, 5 a.m.s. So, it is what it is. But I think it's a you saying taking the moment to realize is what I think people should take away from it.
Well, everybody talks about, hey, remember when and remember when. And sometimes it's not about remembering when. It's being like, hey, check this out. Like, look what we're doing right now. And I think that just now, as I'm cruising through this career, I feel old in this career. I feel like it's sometimes a struggle to not maintain relevance and not maintain, any type of talent or skill set in it. I'm confident in that. But for me, it's more so sometimes I feel like you're always getting pushed out because of age or because of the fact that people want something fresh and whatever. So I never get to look and enjoy. I'm always just worried about the next. Like, there's always a new goal to achieve. There's always a new benchmark to work towards. And like you said, I know you joke around, you say 100,000 subscribers, but to some people that's attainable in a short term. To some that's garbage. That's very low. But to us, it's like almost stardom to a degree, right? It's unreal. But in that rat race, in this constant kind of chase, and for us as content creators, we feel it in that kind of capacity. But for people who are on the grind, for people who are playing, they might not be able to sit and enjoy because they may attribute that happiness and attribute that good feeling to their record at the end of the day. And sometimes I find when I ask somebody, how did your weekend go? The first response I get is their record. It's not, I had fun, I had a good time. And that's a little bit of what I want to dig into today. And I thought nobody better than you to have a well-grounded and reasonable, because you do the competition part, you do the content creation part, and you also, I feel, have this joy about you that when you see something that's bullshit, you call it bullshit. But when you see something and you enjoy something that's, you're within that moment, that this is a good time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing me on because you know for a fact that my record's typically not good, so I have to be I have to be pulling it out of somewhere. This happiness, no, I think that's it's just kind of comes with the territory with these games, right? Like we all want to do well, and like great results are awesome, and caching or whatever is great. It's like I bubbled, whatever. In the end of the game, it is a game. Or in the end of the day, it is a game. I don't want to kind of, I guess talk down on people's expectations of the game, right? Like obviously you all put a lot of work into the game and you should expect to do well or want to do well. But sometimes it doesn't, because guess what? There's variance in card games, whether it's a lot in some others or less in this game, but there's still variance. And sometimes, listen, I mean, especially in this meta right now, like there's like a lot of like really good decks. And sometimes you're playing the one that's going to get targeted, and guess what? You're going to run into those targets. So it's out of your control. So I think a great way to look at it is, when things aren't going your way, right? you got to immediately focus on the positives, right? He's like, well, okay, so I rolled low. You know, we Gary, aka Mr. Viz, and I have the Blood Rush Bellow, another podcast we do, Scab Skin Moment of the Week, right? It started out as like, oh, we talk about some brute stories, and now it's just life stories. It's like, I rolled high this week, you know, we got a raise at work, or I rolled like double ones because recently Gary had went tubing on the river and did not put sunscreen on and looked like a lobster, right? These things happen. Like there's highs and lows to life. You ideally want to settle around the rolling a 4 range, but sometimes it's just not going to happen. So like you just got to focus on that, and you have to recognize it's not always going to go your way. And this is something I see with these perennial card gamers, right? These grinders, right? The results oriented thinking really, really takes hold. And I sometimes worry about those people, as I'm sure, you know, a lot of us do, because like you can't win every event. You know, we have great players in this game. So I hope that they take away that they had fun or whatever. But I think that's usually where I land, because I want to win. I want to win a calling. I want to win something. But, you know, I also have to be honest with myself. I have a full-time job. I do content creation. Content creation cuts into all the practice, right? All the practice that I theoretically could do, as well as, you know, life and all that stuff. If I don't do well, I'm doing myself a disservice if I'm getting upset, because I have to be real. I didn't have the time to practice for this. I'm happy to get a couple wins, to be honest. And now I get to hang out with my friends in this game that we all traveled to this thing, and it's all brought us together. So that's kind of where, you know, I land anyway.
Certainly, and everybody has different objectives, and and I'm not here to tell someone that you should feel happy whether you win or lose, because oftentimes success is an easier path to finding your happiness. I mean, nobody is going to get their ass kicked consistently and walk away with a big smile on their face and say, oh boy, I can't wait to tell these stories. They're going to be so funny and so great. Usually it's just like, get me the hell out of here. You know, it's X2 drop. If everybody enjoyed losing or were okay with losing, nobody would drop out of a tournament, right? Like that's just the fact of the matter. Like there'd be 128 people in round 7 as there were in round 1, the same amount. But that's just not the reality, because we evaluate things, and sometimes it's just the fact that, hey, I'm not in it for the money anymore, or I'm not in it for the prizing, I'm not placing, let's get the hell out of here. It happens, and that's perfectly fine. But I find that what is oftentimes missed in all of this is that people overvalue or they just intimately tether winning and happiness, and that in itself, they can kind of miss a lot of the fun that is out there. But again, everybody's different, and I think that that's okay. And you know, coming back from Atlanta and just looking forward to going to Las Vegas, and then, you know, I'm going to be playing in Columbus. And are you going to be in Columbus, by the way?
I'm gonna try. I'm trying. So if you're in Columbus, say hi.
That's a good. I don't know if you could hear these dogs just chirping outside of my window, but there's always something going on in this apartment. It's like Pee-wee's Playhouse in here.
Well,
Man.
tell them Large Marge sent you. So
Yeah. Large Marge. Oh God. So again, we're just literally just going off the cuff here on this episode, because I am just overjoyed. I had a great weekend. There's plenty more to come, but let's dig into a little bit about what it is that you enjoy about the content creation aspect to get to the 100 episodes and beyond. And just you specifically, you say that you don't have time to practice, but you still play the game, you still enjoy it. I'm led to believe in this case that it's more so the community and the friendships and the relationships that you developed here that keeps you going.
yeah, and honestly, it's that, and I love this part right here when we're actually on mics and talking. Sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes I don't, and I probably have mentioned this before. I don't really. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I gotta do this podcast later. I just gotta get there. And then as soon as the mics turn on, I'm like, thank God we're here. This is a ton of fun, and I'm happy to be talking to whoever I'm talking to. And I think that is my favorite part, right? Editing and stuff, that sucks. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I hate it. But I like the performance part. I like the conversations and the community. The community is huge, right? Like, so something that I feel pretty proud of is, so I get to come on this podcast with you, Flake, right? Which is obviously an honor, and I love chatting with you. I know I'm not I know I'm not James Way. I know I'm not the huge names, right? I have, some footing in the community or whatever.
I was about to say you're huge to me, but I know that Logan is gonna and Charmer are gonna go on a ride with
Whip
that.
it.
Yeah.
But I know that, but I know that when I come on somebody else's program and I call out to my community, hey, check this out, I know that they're going to, right? Which I think is very, like, that isn't always true of a lot of communities. And not to say that those communities are bad or anything like that, but I'm very proud of it because I think I got to curate a community that cares about what else is going on in Flesh and Blood, right? So that's something that makes me happy and very proud and stuff like that. It makes me easy. It becomes easy to go 100 episodes at that point. Why not do 1,000 more at this point? If everything is going to go the way it's been going, it's become part of my life. Like, I can't imagine doing a week without an episode at this point. There was one week where I had some audio issues on a podcast, and I had to, like, really get into the tank to fix them, but it wasn't going to be out on time. So I recorded a whole solo episode just to make sure I got out an episode at the same time, right? I feel pretty obligated to the listeners to give them that, whether they want it or not. So, like, here, you're taking it, whether you like it or not. And I don't know, I like it. I didn't think it would get to this point because I had podcasted before, but, mostly into the void, just folks I knew at home or whatever. But this is something a little bit more special. So yeah.
That's great. And I like that too. And the whole, whether you like it or not thing, we like it. And that's what's important. And I kind of feel sometimes the same pressures. I know that, when listening to Flesh and Pod with Logan and Charmer, they make a point to say, we don't take weeks off. And I don't think they're doing it because they're trying to keep some crazy DiMaggio-esque streak alive. They're merely trying to just say, hey, like, we love this so much, and we make sure that we step into the box and take a swing every time. And we love that. And we love that about them, and we love that about you. And the fact that you've eclipsed now 100 episodes, and even if you didn't want to, like, a lot of that has to come from the fact that there's just genuine passion. And it's felt, and that's what I love about it. There's this old adage or whatnot, and I remember hearing this because a friend of mine all the way back from high school, Luca, if you're listening to this, I love you, and I'm sorry that we teased you about your super short shorts in gym. But his father owned a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and the whole thing is that most, like 90% of restaurants fail within the first year, and his was like 11 or 12 years running now, and they were very proud of that. And that's the same thing with content creation. Like, even surpassing 10 episodes is a pretty important thing, and it's not an important aspect from the perspective of viewership. It's from the perspective of the passion and the dedication of the creator sticking to it and getting there. And eventually, yeah, it might wheel into your rhythm. It might wheel into your routine, as it has for me. I know that if it's Monday or Tuesday, I'm recording ISP. That's just what happens. And I do feel a little bit of the same. I wouldn't say it's an annoyance. It's more of this nagging feeling in the back of your mind. And I've never smoked, but I would imagine it's the same kind of feeling you get when you want a cigarette, where you're like, it's been a while, I should probably sit down and figure this out. It's annoying in that regard. But once you sit down and you take that first puff, you're like, damn, yeah, that's the good stuff. Like, right here. I was stressing about it. I was kind of like, do I just skip? I'm like, I've got a million things to do and 36 hours to do them. Like, I can't do that. But I was like, I got to make it happen. And now here we are. And I feel great. I feel rejuvenated.
Well, it's funny you say Compared to a cigarette. If it was like a cigarette for me, that means I would start podcasting when I was blackout drunk at a bar at 2 a.m.
Well, we
outside.
should. Well, again, I don't want to take this back to Flesh and Pod, but that sounds like a Logan episode to me.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Let's add, we got a bunch of questions here, and a lot of this episode is going to be questions because, again, we did no notes this time. It's Tommy Fresh. It's Flake. We don't do notes when the two of us are together. And one of these questions, for some reason, Discord is kind of being an ass to me, and I can't see the entire name on Discord, but it starts with a T. It's on from your Discord. It's right below when I ask people to submit questions. Maybe you could read it out. The picture is some anime girl. I don't know what else to say. But the question...
You're on streamer mode, so that's probably can't see it.
Yeah, I don't understand why it just X's out like all the names. Like it just kind of abbreviates them. But anyway. Way to go, Discord. This is what I pay for Nitro for. Ultimately... the question was, how do you guys feel about loss fatigue? If you lose, I enjoy playing Fab, but obviously don't like losing constantly. I play with a pretty small table group, and sometimes it's just the two of us. But man, does it feel bad to play 5 to 6 games and lose every single one of them. I've been there. I've done that, and I've taken it to heart for so long. How do you feel about this? Because you mentioned that you go and you kind of expect to lose, but that's a consequence of the fact that you're not putting in as much time as you may want to the practice process. But it must still affect you to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there were times, especially, at my LGS, it was always Dan Rakowski, Michael Fang, like especially when I first started out, Yang Ji Yang, Craig Krempel. It's like the who's who of really good card game players, right, in New Jersey. So I was just losing. And there were times when I was like, why am I even going, right? I'm just going to lose 0-3. And then certainly I was learning. And then there were times like later on when I got a little bit better at the game that I would still have those streaks of losing. And I found that eventually I had to, if I were to enjoy myself while losing, I had to just become buddies, like try to be more friendly with everybody. Not that I wasn't before, but I was like, sometimes card gamers can be reserved, right? And that's okay, but it's too bad. I'm going to try to be your friend and like have a good time. I'm going to make jokes when I'm, when I play pulping and I flip over a Art of War and I'm like, well, there goes my game. But it's just, you kind of have to, you got to take yourself out of it. And like, certainly at the local level, that's where you can, right? Like at a calling or whatever, it's hard. You can't you can't be sitting next to someone that you've never met before and just be, joking, it could be a little, offensive to them. Like they're really serious about the game and you're just, whatever. But, at the armory level, I think you really can do that because that's the whole point of the local armories that, you're all from the same community and you're all gathering here to play this game. Why not be friends with them and have fun, even if you're losing? Now, there's always other things you can do there, right? Like I took a break from Leviah for a while, right? I knew Leviah was getting new toys at Dusk Till Dawn. So I took a break. I was like, I'm going all in on Riptide. I got, pretty good at Riptide, was winning games with Riptide. And sometimes that's all it takes is to just, challenge yourself to like break out of that kind of rut. I think we all get in those ruts. It's a matter of what we do, when we get there, right? Because we can easily just say, I'm just going to show up and lose again. But, we all have regency here. We all can, make strides to change something, whatever. If it's trying another deck and that doesn't pan out, whatever, move on to the next one. At least you're learning more about different decks in the game. And I think that's a positive thing you can take away from it.
I always find that you need to evaluate what you're there for. And a lot of times people expect results without putting in the proper work. Because if you are so down on losing and your enjoyment of something is so hinged on winning in that particular scenario, then why aren't you working to get to that? Like a lot of times it's, for example, it's like I can't hit a curveball and they keep throwing me curveballs and I keep striking out. All right, well, are you going to the batting cages and checking out Well, no, I'm not. It's just annoying that I can't hit them. Well, that's part of it. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what, this person is suggesting, is that they're being nonchalant about it. But in the grand scheme of things, you need to understand what you're there for. If you are and understand where you derive your enjoyment of something. If your enjoyment of something is desperately attached to winning, then you have two options. Your options are change nothing and continue to be upset, or put in an immense amount of work to improve and then see the return on that. Because not everybody is going to have the same experience of where they derive their joy from something. But if that W is what gets you hard at the end of it all, well, then why aren't you putting in the work to get to that high? And this is something that for me, I find was a critical juncture in my card gaming career as a whole, be it broadcasting or competing, was that I had to understand that losses were going to happen and that there was going to be people that were better than me, and that for no fault of my own, I might lose. But at the same time, I can minimize those scenarios by working hard to practice and change it. Not saying that everyone has the same amount of time, but when you go down that route and you do the best that you can, and then you lose, at least you can say, there's nothing more I could do here. And that does actually take the sting off of it. It does, because there's two things that'll happen there. You'll either lose again and say, well, shit, I put in my best effort here, and unfortunately it didn't come up. But you feel good about it. You feel good that that it's no longer something that you have agency over, that you can kind of dial in or whatever. Or you start winning more, and it becomes a little more enjoyable in that regard. It does actually change that whole process.
Yeah, and another thing you could do here is you got to think about why, right? Like, and people don't change heroes a lot, right? Especially at the local level. You're going, it's a player identity, basically. It's like, oh, there's the Dromai player, there's the Riptide player, whatever. And when you lose to people over and over again, right, on your deck that you've been playing and the deck that they play, you have all this like anecdotal data there that you can start to process in terms of like, why am I losing to this deck every single time I show up at Armory, and what can I do to improve? Now, here's an example. When I was on Riptide, right, and bringing it to local Armory, there was a local bud that plays Blockout Dromai. It's the most annoying deck in the game, in my opinion, right now. But, it is very hard for a Ranger to break through that sometimes. Right?
I heard Blackout Dromai, and I immediately, again, thought about Logan Peterson. This is a Logan Peterson episode, yeah.
Logan, if you're listening, this is your sign.
This is for you, buddy.
Get help. No. But, and like, it became, I would go 3 rounds, 2-0, meet the Dromai in round 3, lose. 2-0, meet the Dromai in round 3, lose. I was like, God, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And I was like, I just had to put my thinking cap on and be like, all right, this is the new end boss at Armory. I don't care what it takes. I'm beating this person, right? And I thought, like, I practiced the Dromai thing. I was like, I got to figure out how to break through this somehow. And I eventually did it, and it felt so good. And then I was like, all right. And now it was right before Dust Till Dawn came out, so I was like, all right, back to Leviathan. So it was like perfect timing. But that's like a great example. Like, think about why the why is the biggest thing that people seem to forget, right? They just think about what happened. I lost. Oh, okay. Well, why? Why did you lose? What happened? What was it? The matchup? Was it the way you sideboarded? Yada yada yada. It doesn't mean anything if you don't think about those things. So I think it's got to have like some kind of paradigm shift there.
Happiness to me in this game space it's like, again, people derive it in different ways. In the same way that like, there's nothing wrong with saying that I am happiest when I'm winning games. There's nothing wrong with that. But happiness, like everything else, takes work, I find, and that's something that some people might think that they're like. I feel like everybody's entitled to be happy. Everybody deserves to be happy, but everybody also deserves to, have a nice place to live and eat good food and whatever. But it takes work to maintain that, and that's a difficult thing to understand for some people, because sometimes things are just come easy, and when it starts to get hard, then that becomes problematic. The amount of times that you'll go to an armory, and like, if you're used to 3-0ing your armories every week, and then suddenly you just go on this losing streak, it's you feel like I've changed nothing and things are different. I'm not the problem, and you go through there. So I also just want to mention that, there are a lot of people out there whose happiness is not derived necessarily from the wins and losses. You can take small little doses of victories along the line and pull it out of there. And yeah, you might say like, hey, I lost it, I don't feel great about that. But it's an important element to understand that it's not this zero-sum thing. You're not either losing and miserable or winning and ultimately happy. You can lose, feel bad about that, but feel good about a whole bunch of other things along the way, like a great play you made, or something that your opponent didn't expect that you were able to pull over them or whatnot, or just even the fact of like, yeah, I went X2 and dropped, but we're going to dinner with a lot of great people, or I'm in this city, or I'm doing this thing, or I opened some packs now and I can play in this draft. I think a lot of people just completely polarize their happiness and find that they can't hold two together. They can't be happy about one thing and disappointed about another. They feel like they have to put one down to pick one up, where that's not the case. It's not a tangible thing that you could only carry in one way. It's this thing that kind of fills you up in different pockets and eventually kind of equalizes. And I have found that, at least from the content creator's perspective, like, I am for the most part happy about a lot of things, and I've had a lot of struggles. And this, because I talk to you about this a lot privately, is that one little thing can derail your entire day, your entire week. And like, it's happened recently, and it has taken a lot of work for me to refine the happiness and the confidence and such. But I preach the whole thing about, like I just said, like, you could be happy about small pockets of what you're doing and disappointed about others. One does not necessarily, negate the other. But here I am finding one shitty thing about me, hearing one shitty thing about me that just immediately thinks that everything's shitty. And that is a struggle in itself.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about there, because, right, we're putting ourselves out there as content creators. We're just like, everything's out on the line, and people can pick us apart however they want, and they will, and they won't stop doing it, and that's just what it is. But I wanted to touch on something that you said about, if you're used to winning, if it's easy for you, and then all of a sudden you hit the losing streak or whatever. Yeah, that situation exists as well. Something that I relate to more is the folks that are just used to losing, and they don't think they deserve the happiness that they get, that other people are getting from winning or whatever, right? I in my personal life, a few years back, it was just like I was in a losing situation, and that's just what I thought I deserved. And that is not the case for, anyone, I don't think. If you feel like you deserve these losses and that you're not good enough, that's not the case. It's like, you need to realize that you are more than that. You do deserve happiness. And I think that's what this whole podcast is going to be about, is that you deserve happiness. We all need happiness too, but it's just a matter of recognizing that, because when you get down on your luck and you just keep losing or whatever, you're doing, it's almost, you're doing like like Stockholm syndrome to yourself. You're just like, this is that, and this is what it is. I just lose all the time, yada yada yada. Like I'm in a bad relationship, and they're gonna continue to treat me bad because I deserve it. But that's not true, right? You got to break out of that. So yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. But I don't know, man. I think well, after this podcast, I'm gonna just reevaluate everything.
Are you deleting everything now? Is that it?
I'm deleting it all. Actually, I'm talking myself in circles. Actually, you know what? I don't deserve any of this. No.
Oh,
but
best way to get rich and be happy, man, is just start your own cult.
True. Speaking of, Bud's Discord is available for anybody to join.
I think that's actually a quote. I think that's a quote, or like I'm bastardizing it here, but I believe the quote was from L. Ron Hubbard, the dude who started Scientology, who said the best way to get rich is to start a religion, and he did that after multiple other attempts to get rich. So, yeah, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry to say Scientology is complete horse dong. So I don't know what to tell you, but that's a whole other podcast. But what you mentioned about feeling like you don't deserve something, I fall into that all the damn time, and it is a very dangerous thing that is so intimately linked to depression because I'm very open about this. I suffer with depression issues, and it as many people out there do, and I'm no longer ashamed to talk about this openly because I hope to God that of the people who listen to this, if one person gets inspired to seek help or feels better about something, then I think we've done a good job. I think we can both say that, right? And the element of when one bad thing happens, you feel like you're not worthy of good things anymore, and that is a slippery slope that then will rob you of joy from other areas, because it's not just a matter of saying something like, let's use the most basic, simple thing. I need to roll anything but a 1 on scab skins, and I don't die. And then you roll a 1, and you feel like you feel like you deserved it. It's such a simple, stupid thing, but then that ruins that aspect, and then you start almost wanting more bad things to happen because you feel like you deserve it, that you don't deserve to be happy. And that is a dangerous element that I want people to understand. It's okay to feel that way, but it's not the truth. It's this gigantic, wool over your eyes kind of illusion that's put out there that when one bad thing happens, you feel like it's because you're a bad person. It's because you deserve it. And therefore you are almost welcoming and expecting more bad things to happen because that's the thing, when it should be the other way. Because when good things happen, that's why I say, let's sit down, let's acknowledge this, let's honor this moment here of a good thing that's occurring, because you should feel the same way as you do with that moment and those good things when you roll the 6 and whatever. It's exciting, but live in it. Take that happiness and enjoy it, and just sort of run with it. It's such a dangerous thing, but it's hard to get away from that link of your success or what you feel makes you happy when the bad things happen, and you feel like, you go down that rabbit hole of, well, why did it happen? I must be a bad person. And why am I a bad person? Well, I guess it's because I deserve it, and this and that and whatever. And then it becomes this spiral, this loop, and it's so dangerous.
Yeah, and not only like the scab skin thing is a great example, but you alluded to it before, that sometimes people will say something or like somebody will put you down, right? And I think that when it comes from somebody else, it usually hurts the most, and it puts you in a worse position mentally, right? And something I learned, I will say, I think everybody should go to therapy. I should go to therapy. I used to go to therapy. I should go back, but whatever, we'll get there. But when I did, I was going through something with some family, right? And it was just so hard for me to understand why they were acting the way they were, and whatever. And what the therapist said to me was, listen, anything that is coming at you in a negative way from somebody else is something that's going on with them, right? And I think that's like the biggest thing you need to realize, because it's so easy to just let it make you feel bad. It's so easy. But if you can sit back and be like, oh well, there's something going on there. It's coming from somewhere else, whether they're upset, they're not comfortable in what they are, or maybe they're just jealous. Sometimes that's as simple as it can be. I mean, I know that that sounds like almost elementary school in a way, but like sometimes they're just jealous and they want to put you down to feel closer to your level. And once you kind of understand that and like basically get this, pretend I'm Brendan Patrick for a hot second, get the heuristic going. That that basically as soon as you hear it, boom, there's something going on with them. This is not about me. It's about them, and I'm not going to let it affect me feeling good, because usually it comes out of a place where you're feeling good or doing something great. So I think that's like a really good way to kind of approach it, right? That's what I do, right? There's people say negative stuff about me all the time. I know it's hard to believe, but no, just kidding. It's way too much. Please stop. But but I just whatever, if you feel that way, I hope whatever's going on with you is gonna fix itself. But
But I mean, the fix itself is one thing, but at the same time, you also need to take a little bit of responsibility of seeking that help yourself, because people will always offer it, but until you're ready to accept it and act on it, then it's difficult. And trust me, I'm one of those. It took me many years to actually seek professional help and have professional discussions. And one of those discussions I had was regarding the fact that, it was a lot of it was like, why do I let a small portion of the feedback that might be negative become my whole life and become my whole mentality and become, so dangerous and so destructive? And it became difficult because, and the advice that I got in that regard was, you need to be more kind to yourself. And it was so hard to just justify it, because the response that I had to that was why would I be selfish to pump my own tires when here are others that won't do it for me? Like, I try my best to uplift and do whatever, and for the most part I think I do a good job. And I'm not perfect, and there's going to be things that I don't like, and I will be vocal about those too. But when it came to that self-love, when it came to that self-care, that acknowledgement that I spend so much time telling people how awesome they are, and rightfully so, because they deserve to hear it. But when I was challenged by my therapist to say, you need to tell yourself what you think about yourself and do it honestly. And she asked, she's like, what do you think of yourself? I'm like, I think I'm okay. Like, it was weird, it was just such an odd thing. She's like, well, you need to legitimately, actively, like, write these things down about what you think is good about you, because you're too concerned about what other people think. And the tough part about that, and I think that there was honestly a little disconnect there, was I had to challenge back and say, my whole career is what other people think. And it's so hard when I'm not the one hiring me, I'm not the one listening to me, as it were, or I'm not the one who has to tune into me. What other people think is essentially my livelihood to a degree. And I'm not going to stand there and, it felt selfish to sit there and be like, oh, you're great and you're good at your job and you're this and you're that. I felt like a complete asshole. Like, and when I had to say these things to this therapist, and at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, well, what about all this stuff? Like, what about hearing this about me and this about me and this about me? It is such a difficult thing to disassociate the negative as being just the negative and not the whole thing. It's a piece of the pie. It's like eating a cookie and finding some raisins in it. Does that mean that the non-raisin part sucks? No, it just means that raisins suck.
Well, I kind of like raisins, but
that's a bad take. That if you need therapy, it's for your raisin addiction.
Yeah. Well, yeah, listen, I mean, we're working on it. But you know what? That brings up a great point. Let's talk about the raisins. No, like the raisins out in okay, let's say for argument's sake, I didn't like raisins, right? In this scenario right here. But the raisins in this world is the people that are saying the negative things, right? To folks, to content creators. Let's just say, because content creators are going to get negative comments all the time. Anybody that puts out an opinion or whatever, or says something on the internet is susceptible to it. This is a message for the people that are choosing to say the negative things, because I know that even personally, when someone says something I disagree with, it's sometimes I just like, I gotta say something. They're wrong, Like I want to like, and obviously there is a form for being civilized there, but it's a little bit hard on the internet. Let's be real. But I want those people to realize that maybe don't be scathing, right? Why are you being scathing? These are other people. What's going on with you, right? And I have the benefit, Flake, of being, I would say lower to mid-tier content creator in this game. And I get to see everything and also not get really called out for much, except for my food takes, apparently. But I watch. I'm not the most vocal, but I look and I see someone be an asshole. I take a screenshot. I got a whole album. Oh yeah, I'm looking. I see people. I'm like, listen, I'm the Santa of Flesh and Blood. All right, I keep in a list. All right, so you better watch out.
Do you have this list like accessible?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just found what our patron tier 3 content is going to be for this episode. Hell yes. You don't have to give names, but I do want to. I would love to dig into that Christmas list, like you said.
I might give some names. Listen.
Hell yeah. Patreon tier 3 hot takes, baby. Yeah. Delicious.
No. I would never do that.
Not for free.
Not for free. Yeah. Not for free. Well, it's up to Flake. Honestly, it's his Patreon. I actually, you know what? I made a comment on some stuff on my Patreon not too long ago, and I recognized that a content creator got called out for something. I don't think they meant to do it. Right? They might have been a little bit misguided or wrong about something. Whatever. We all do it. We all miss information all the time, and and I said that person apologized. I said, you should double down. That's what I do. Double down. If you're wrong, who cares? I'm kidding. But maybe you should double down some more. Guys, make it a joke. Things are funny. Things can be funny. I think things are awesome when they're funny.
The problem, and this is like where I also take a little bit of like I take issue with this whole mentality, and I don't know if this has changed in like recent years of adolescence and growing up, but when you and I were growing up, how old are you again?
31.
All right, so I'm 37. We were in the same, more or less, sphere.
We're the same age.
Yeah, we'll call it. In the grand scheme of the earth, we're all specks of dust and we don't matter, right? But growing up, I was taught that when you're being bullied or when you're being, when there's a bully, you just walk away and and be the bigger man. But you know what? No offense. Fuck that shit. And this is the tough part about it, because it used to be that you can walk away and escape to wherever you're going, and they could not follow you. They could not get access to you. They could not have a platform to continue that garbage. But that has changed, and I've begun to see this as a change in philosophy of no, beat the shit out of them. Like, I don't mean that from a physical perspective, but when somebody is being an outward bully and a whatever, why are you not fighting back? And I get it, and like here we are talking like about happiness and mental health and things like this, but having been on the receiving end for so many years, and I'm not talking just from Flesh and Blood. I'm not even talking about content creation and card games in general, but high school and whatever. Like, I am the same person today as I was more or less in high school. It's minus, 20 some odd years. Add confidence. Here I am. That's what it was. But back then, I liked Star Wars. I liked card games. I liked comic books. That was not cool stuff back then. It was not. And you get bullied and you get teased. But I can go home. I can log into Warcraft and play on my computer and read my Star Wars books, and that was That was it until you got to go back to school the next day and cross your fingers. Now you get it on Twitter, you get it on Facebook, you get it on whatever the hell it is, and there's no escape. And these clowns that think that they're hot shit because they can, cleverly piece together a tweet or a video or whatever to make you look like an asshole, that now is just, that's the new wave of it. And that infringes on me being happy and me having like a healthy mental state and whatever. But at the same time, how much of this is just you being able to sit back and say, oh, well, walk away and ignore it and whatever. I mean, like, look, when Brian Gottlieb responded to that tweet, you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He didn't pull punches in any way, shape, or form because he saw somebody that was trying to, make crap out of something that was clearly not true and whatever. And everybody says, just ignore it, just ignore it, just ignore it. And I gotta say, I think that ship has sailed because we're in an era right now where F that, like, if there's bullshit and people are taking advantage and trying to push these harmful narratives, snuff it out, step on it, just confront it. Like, I am all about that now. I'm all about not starting shit, but at the same time, if you're going to drag me in, like, throw down, let's go.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you got to be in the same weight class and stuff like that. We got to make sure it's an even fight and whatever.
I have glasses, so the glasses is its own weight class.
Okay, all right, that's fair. No, so I've noticed this about the Flesh and Blood community, right? It's a great community, and I think we all agree. But sometimes there's a lot of piling on. I've noticed, like, people just, I don't know, like, they just like see one thing and they take it out of context and whatever. I'm not even talking about just with you. I've seen it with other people too. I'm like, they say something, it seems to just be a harmless tweet or whatever. All of a sudden it's like, no, this is why you're wrong. And then everybody else jumps on and I'm like, this person was just saying something. Like, let's relax. Like, come on, guys. Like, we have a responsibility, right? Especially if we're in the content creating game, we have a responsibility to kind of maintain civility here, right? We don't need to pile on. Obviously, if somebody's wrong, they're wrong, sure, but we don't need to affect their kind of like attack their life, I think that's what we see a lot of, and the video that you're talking about, I watched the video. And I will say, I don't know. It seemed pointless, right? I mean, whatever.
I wasn't even referencing. You talking about the off the rails quote or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So what's hilarious about that is, again, the piling on aspect of this. First of all, give the Oscar for creative editing to whoever started it. What's his face? Because like, you take anything out of context and you take 30 seconds out of an hour conversation. You could do that too. Trust me. He was on Instant Speed a long time ago and sat in the back on a bed and had nothing to say, and when you ask him questions, I've met him multiple times. Very soft-spoken, quiet, shy, person. And whatever, who cares? It's just funny. But if that was all it was, fine. What bothered me about it was, like you said, the pile-on effect of people saying, yeah. And I had to reply to one and be like, hey, this is a little out of context because the part you're missing here is where I say this is a dumb question and that this is not even a question worth answering because there is no greatest of all time in the game because the game's 3 years old and it's constantly changing and I don't even want to answer it. And first of all, for the reason why I said Rhea Adams is because she won 2 tournaments and she was on the panel. And you idiots, like she was on the panel and I wanted to put her in the spotlight and put her on the spot for being there. So like, again, context is everything, you dipshits. Like, I don't know how else to say this. And beyond that, we were kind of a little bit goaded by Pat because Pat wanted a show that had more friction and more conflicting views. So he said, be a little bit more controversial. So fuck yeah, of course I was going to say someone like Pablo Pintor or whatever. But I was like, that seems a little bit safe. So let's give Pat what he wants. Let's give him something fun to talk about. So I chose somebody who was on the panel and I put them into the spotlight. But then that spiraled into a whole bunch of donkeys that the worst one out of all of this, was that one of the replies was, I knew you were a loudmouth idiot all along. And then I look and I'm like, okay, so the person who thinks I'm a big loudmouth idiot and knew it all along is following me on Twitter, subscribe to me on Twitch. I'm like, you dumbass. Like, I don't know how else to say this. But I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. Also, here's 90 minutes of me basically kissing Pablo Pintor's ass, rightfully so, because he's an incredible human being. That happened 5 days ago. So the whole thing about how I disrespected Pablo Pintor is hilarious to me. But again, that's not even what I was trying to allude to with this conversation.
I know. I just want to, address the elephant in the room a little bit. I felt like it'd be fun, but
but I don't get to do that. I don't get to. The thing is about it is again, I don't get to go on Twitter and be a blowhard like that in that capacity. Because it's like I don't have the time to pick fights and arguments on Twitter. I just don't. And the second thing is like if somebody has an opinion, I'll absolutely I'll honor that opinion and I'll give you my response. And if your response is attacking my character and calling me all this names, then automatically I'm just gonna I'm done here. What am I? I'm not gonna get into a pissing match with some stranger with whose Twitter name has 900 different numbers in it. It's not happening.
Listen, I'm a little bit disappointed that you found my burner account, but it's well, you know what? I think and like I was saying before, it comes from something that's going on with the person, right? Maybe it is, and listen, maybe there's some self-consciousness about the spot that Australia holds in the flesh and blood world, right? And that could be it, right? And hey, I'll say it. What's going on down there? You guys upside down or something? What is I don't really know how it works going on, but down there, and you can clip that. And I can't wait for the pile on. But
I love my hold on a second, because you'll clip that, and then what they won't do is they won't say that you're kidding. They won't clip the part that you're kidding. I love all my Australian and New Zealand friends. I love everybody in the world. And then that's gonna get clipped into something terrible, anyways. But whatever.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. You know what? I say clip everything, whatever. If it's content I don't have to make, right? You make it for me. I don't care,
Thanks for it. This reminds me actually of what happened. So when I was a Gwent caster back in the day, there was one competitor who had won a couple tournaments or placed well in some tournaments. The dude had won over 50, I think it was over 20 or 30 grand US over their career. It had been discovered that they were cheating, which is really hard to do in a digital client game. But what they were doing essentially is when they had reached a certain point in the ladder, in order to secure their spot into one of the big money tournaments, what they would do is they'd wait till the off hours of the game. One of their buddies who is a similar rank in them, the higher you get up in the ladder, harder it is to get matched against somebody of your same thing, of your same elo. So what they would do is they would queue in at the same time, and very often they would get matched up, and then they'd each play one card, and then the other dude would forfeit. And basically, it's called win trading. So the dude would elo would just get constantly risen because of that. And it was discovered, it was proven, statistically, they had video evidence, they went through all the records, whatever. But the dude had already fleeced the game out of 20 or 30 grand, right? He got banned for a year. It was investigation, the whole 9 yards. When it was announced, it was tweeted out by the game. Gwent's main Twitter account tweeted out this player had been banned or whatever for cheating. It's just proven, whatever. I retweeted it and I said, goodbye, clown. You know who got in trouble? I did. Do you know who got punished? I did. Do you know who got absolutely just shelled? I did. I got punished by the company for that tweet because it said I alienated that player's fans by calling him a clown. Bitch, he cheated and stole money from you. They're like, you should have and there was a big Reddit campaign about getting me fired because I called a proven cheater a clown in one tweet. And then the game director had to contact me and say, you have to delete this tweet. We are not going to give you any preview cards for a while. We're going to review your involvement in the game. I'm like, okay. The dude cheated though, right? I just want to make sure. And they're like, you should probably apologize. And I was like, and my apology was, I apologize to the cheater whose fans, I apologize to the fans of the cheater whom I may have offended. That was my apology tweet. And what was funny about that is when you're talking about the fact of like getting free content, my streams afterwards were flooded with all these like all of his fans calling me a clown. And I was like, yeah, I'm not offended by that. Like, I am a clown. I am absolutely a clown. Also, thank you for like tripling my viewership. Like, this is really good for my metrics. Thank you so much. I was like, I could absolutely ignore you guys and continue to play. You do not hurt my feelings in any way. But that's the kind of weird shit that I had to deal with that game.
Well, that is the internet in a nutshell. And I got to figure out who I got to call a clown in this game to grow my channel. So who, you know what?
Do you want to start a fake Twitter feed between you and I?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh my God. How do we do this? Because like those who listen to either of our podcasts, here's what we'll do. Okay. Starting on your next episode and my next episode. Like we both publish on Thursdays, right?
Yeah.
On your episode, here's what you do. You go on, okay? Go on your show, and whoever your guest is, mention about how you had like I was just incredibly rude and terrible to you.
Yeah.
And like fill them in before the show. Maybe like who do you have this week, by the way?
This week is Pat Shaw.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. And just let him in on it, and let's create this fun thing and see. I don't know, like I just want to see how this goes because that like 2 or 3 episodes, like a couple of weeks down the line, I want to see who listens to either of our shows where we had this conversation. Just warning everybody, and then what I'll do is I'll tweet out on like the Friday or Saturday or like whatever, say like I listened to Tommy, thought he was better than that, and then we'll go for it. You want to do that?
Yeah, that sounds good. And then because then I'll be like, well, if you don't believe me, go watch the show.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And then we'll see who actually, because now we're deep into this, like we're over past the hour, right? So they'll have to actually commit to this, and then we can start this. Dude, then we just doubled our content. Look at us creating clickbait and all kinds of drama.
Look at us, Flake. And for those who have made it this far,
yeah,
I understand it's probably not a lot. This has been one hell of a ride.
It has. I know. Maybe this is the end of our careers. Who knows? We've just like orchestrated our own demise. And you know what? And we're doing it as friends. And it didn't take some super soft 4-ply dude to create some kind of like a video edit on YouTube or whatever. So it's awesome. It's awesome. We're getting there.
It's awesome. I'm gonna throw some Canadian stuff in there. Oh man, I record in like a couple hours, so it's gonna be nice and fresh.
I'm currently Googling the top 10 bad things about New Jersey. Oh my God. Oh my God. All the lists are different.
I mean, hey, listen. We have stuff to work on, that's for sure. The taxes are a little high, because everybody wants to live here. We got to tax a lot of people.
Oh, man. This is why I wanted you on the show, because I know that you're always in for my harebrained schemes.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're having fun.
And
we're happy.
We are working on it. Look, and we'll circle it back to what we're talking about, which is happiness. And how about this? Do you want to do you have that list of stuff? And are you willing to dig into that?
I'll only mention a couple.
That's
right?
fine. You don't have to say them all.
Yeah,
Here's what we're gonna do. For our tier 3 Patreon subscribers, The following content will be available, I think, on Saturday. I usually post that stuff on Saturday. So if you want to check it out on Saturday, Tier 3 Patreon, go to patreon.com/instantspeed for this kind of exclusive content. Tommy is going to tell us 5 things that make him happy right now, and then dig into his checking his list and checking it twice, or writing what does that song go? I don't want to think about Christmas right now. We'll just say that you have a list. No, that's also kind of bad.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna. I mean, it's five things I'm happy about, and then we'll get into the scathing, call outs to the community.
Yeah, let's do
or
that.
whatever.
So that will be for our Patreon Tier 3 people. The one thing about Tall Timmy, and I message him every couple of weeks. I send him a text, and I don't ask any questions. I merely say, I just want to remind you that people love you, and we all hope you're well. That's it. And he always responds back, I appreciate you. However, if I find out that somebody is fucking with him, I will go
Oh yeah,
ape
come on
shit.
now.
Ape shit. And I don't have any information or any knowledge about anything. But dear God, if it is somebody fucking with him, I would probably know who it is. And if it is true, ooh, the gloves come off. The gloves come off.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Tall Timmy thing. I hope he's doing well, and I reached out to him too when he made the announcement, and it was very sad, and it felt like a hole in the community. This is obviously not anything that we were just talking about, but like, how can you not love that guy? He was the best. I mean, he is the best. He's not dead. Like, he is the best. His spoiler video, we watched, me and Gary, and like we just watched it multiple times when it came out. The one from Dusk Till Dawn, where basically they had pictures of the characters on chairs, and they had like grilling utensils and pretending to attack each other. It was comedy gold. He was the best. He is the best. Sorry.
He is the best, and I think that so we're back to the standard
I know,
episode.
sorry.
But like no, we're good. But like this is a good kind of bookend to this episode about happiness, mental health, and stuff like that. And I like to have you on for these episodes because it's a nice little checkup for me too. Because like I say this every single time that we have a discussion about mental health, you were my first, flesh and blood related individual who ever showed me that kind of care and that kind of concern about my mental well-being, and just how I was doing. And that meant incredible amounts of the sincerity I felt in that moment, and the friendship that we just solidified at that point. That's why I want to have you on, every now and then, to just make sure that I feel selfish bringing you on in this capacity, because I talk to you because it makes me feel good and happy, much like people would consume Tall Timmy content or talk to him and whatnot, because he was such a happy individual, and it's infectious. And we don't know what was going on in the background, and we still don't know what's going on in the background. And maybe that is a lesson for people to realize that as jovial, as positive, as much of a happy force that Tall Timmy was, maybe there was something else going on in the background that he had to address. Maybe he was going through something. Maybe something tough was happening for him. And we don't know that, because all we see is that, 9'3" pillar of happiness bouncing down the street and saying, "Team, let's go." So cautionary tale, you don't know what people are going through, and be kind to one another. It's important.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great lesson to take home at the end of this, because we all have our trials and tribulations, right? And so we don't like to put them out there all the time. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with content creators or your opponents or whatever, your local people, your buds, and check in and be good, be happy. If you're happy and you radiate it towards other people, hopefully some of that catches fire with them as well.
But in the same vein, do not be afraid to acknowledge where you need help, and to seek help where it is necessary, as I have done, Tommy, you have done, and many others do too. And I'm always here for people if they want to send me a message, or just say, hey, I'm feeling this way. And sometimes it's not even about seeking help. It's just about seeking acknowledgement. Sometimes it's just about letting people know how you're not feeling yourself, And sometimes that's good enough. That's a good enough first step, is just sharing. It's uncomfortable to share, and it's sometimes even more uncomfortable to hear feedback. But take that first step. Sometimes it's just about telling somebody that I'm going through a bad time. I don't want help. I don't want anything. I just want to tell somebody. And that's the first little tiptoe towards improvement.
Yeah. And Levi wins nationals to bring it back to the flesh. But no, I'm kidding. No, you're right. You're right. And yeah, sometimes just saying it is all you need. And whether people listen or not, you said it and it's out there. And somebody's going to care. And we all care about you. Message Flake if you want to talk to me, and he'll give you my people. I'm kidding. I am also open for anybody who needs. Sorry, I can't help it. This is my defense mechanism, humor, and some people have that. So I'm going through a lot right now. I'll tell you that. I'm willing to chat with anybody about anything that anybody else is going through. So be good, and thank you, Flake, for having me.
That's my sincere pleasure. That is Thomas Von Freshness, a.k.a. Tommy Fresh, of the Fresh and Buds podcast. You can get that at Fresh Buds on Twitter.
Pod.
Fresh Buds Pod. You know what? You do it, because I don't know why I decided that I should be the one plugging your shit. So,
well, you can find me on Twitter or on.
We don't acknowledge that garbage here. No.
Okay, sorry. Find me on Twitter at Fresh Buds Pod. YouTube's Fresh and Buds on YouTube. All links in the link tree. Buds Discord. Check out the Patreon. I'm trying to ramp up these freshies again on the Patreon, where I basically just dim the lights, put on soft jazz, and talk about nonsense. It is less structured than what we just did on Patreon for this wonderful show. And what else? I'm doing a Levi cosplay. I'm working on it. I got a bunch of materials on its way. And, our bud, Rachel Stoddard, has been awesome in helping me and answering my questions. It's been amazing. And, I think that's it. Yeah. And you can find, and all of our Spotify stuff. You rate our podcast on Spotify. It helps us. So this one, mine, and whatever, Flesh and Pod too. So, give them a like. So
hell yeah.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, to you, Tommy Fresh, and thank you very much to our sponsors at kayfabecards.com. Go to kayfabecards.com. Be who you want to be at Kayfabe Cards. That's a nice big piece about being happy, is being who you want to be. You can do so at Kayfabe Cards, as well as our Patreon sponsors. You guys rock sauce, so thank you very much as we continue to grow. More exclusive content. You can get a cool Borvo skin for your Bravo deck on Talishar if you're a Patreon supporter. You can go to patreon.com/instantspeed for as little as $2 a month. You can help us out. And check out berrygoodembroidery.com/ISP. Fresh and Bud stuff is there. I have stuff there, some cool merch there if you go to Berry Good Embroidery. Some really cool merch that is decently priced. That's a very important thing that we all wanted to make sure, is that you're not paying like $35 or $40 for a t-shirt. You can get some really cool gear for both of our shows there. And that's it, man. So until next time, don't forget you're not losing if you're learning. See you next time on ISP.
Well, I